in South Louisiana, anyone who's got allergies, take this.
NAD is probably the biggest thing coming out right now on anti-aging. Normally, like when we're tight in here and you start getting that pressure and you're taking those joints and muscles through full range, this one feels almost addicting.
So consistency over intensity. And then we're just going to roll up and down. It seems crazy, but when you go get massages and they're finding tightness in here, the first thing you need to do is start releasing this stuff. Kelly, thank you. You did the exercises last week and it helped a lot.
All right. Good evening, my friends. How are y'all? Welcome to another episode with Tea with Dr. D. I'm Dr. D, if that makes some sense. I'm drinking, I'll give y'all my little tea spill. I'm drinking a little bit of some dandelion root tea that is non-caffeinated, but I love this stuff. It's got like a very light coffee flavor. It's something I've recommended to a lot of people who are trying to get off of coffee in the morning is get it I think it's called Dandy Blends. It's a big package of dandelion, tea, but it looks and tastes a lot like coffee. So the tea form is much lighter than that. But if you are trying to stop doing coffee, Dandy Blends is a great thing. I love coffee and I do have my morning cup. So I'm not doing that, but there are times where I go through like a little bit of a caffeine down regulation. I love my morning routine of having coffee, and I'll do like dandelion root, or Dandy Blends to make a replacement. So I like tea. That's why we do this show and call it Tea with Dr. D. But I'm here to answer whatever questions you have about health, about healing, about improving longevity, maybe about any research that you've heard about. We talk about this a lot in our practice where we're trying to give people the tools to heal better, to live healthier lives. And this is just an outstretch of that. Can we make sure that we're giving people the right information to make good decisions? So drop a question in, say hi, and you can text me. If you're listening to this at a later date, you can text 801-691-7582. Those go straight to me. I do communicate on there. I'm not going to promise you that I'll get an answer to you that moment, but I do try and go through these at least weekly and kind of answer a few questions, and especially if it's got anything to do with like treatment or healing or finding second opinions or anything. Really a good place for us to have a good conversation. So let me know. And with that, we'll dive in. Again, drop whatever questions you have about health or healing or pain or anything else in there, and we'll hit y'all up and answer what we can. So thank y'all for being here. Thank you for listening. So let's dive in. Let's see what we got. Ashley. What do you say when patients don't know how to describe their pain? I'd say this is fairly common, and it's funny because I just had this conversation, that people don't have a good descriptor for their pain. Now, I have to separate this into two categories because if you know what your pain feels like, but you just don't have like the verbiage to do it, that's okay to me. I don't expect you to have anatomical language around what pain feels like. But there are good studies that show that if we are so dissociated from our pain and from our body that we don't know what the pain actually feels like, that's a problem. That can be something that actually perpetuates pain. Because our brain and our body are not communicating well. So one thing that I do want people to understand is what is the quality of what they're feeling that they are describing as pain. And sometimes we don't know this answer. And so I'll give people like a body scan meditation where you sit there and you scan your body to try and understand, what do I feel in my shoulder? What do I feel in my neck? Is there tension there? Is there tightness there? Is there spasms? Is it relaxed? Is it soft? Are they raised? Are they lowered? And there's good body scan meditations out there. If you look on, whatever site you might be, YouTube or any of that stuff, look for a body scan meditation. And I think you'll find if you start doing that and you understand what your body feels like, and you can describe, here's what the pain feels like. I'm not going to say this is everything, but it does help for your brain and your healing process. So that's more of what I care about. And I think that does help us, one, clinically, but that does help your brain and body to communicate better. So hopefully that helps. That's kind of my description of how I want people to think about, describing and feeling their pain. Ryan asks, I feel like I need a stronger immune system. Where should I start? I'm a big fan, Ryan, of definitions. And whenever we are defining these things, I think it helps us to make a good goal. So the first thing is what are you looking for with a stronger immune system? There's a reason you're saying that. And is that because you're getting sick often? You're like, hey, I feel like if my immune system was stronger, I'd get sick less. Is it that you feel like you're not healing? What's the definition to you of a stronger immune system? So that's my first caveat is let's get real specific on what your definition of success is. We really want a well-regulated, resilient immune system that's functioning well. You don't want it to be overactive, because that's autoimmune disease. You don't want it to be underactive, because then we're going to have lots of issues with healing and sickness and all those things. So whenever we are looking at this, I typically look at this in probably 4 areas that I would start with for immune health, and those would be sleep, movement, nutrition, and deficiencies. Sleep is always where we start. If you're not sleeping well, you're not going to have a healthy immune response. So hopefully you can do some stuff that helps you sleep. And the big thing about sleep is making sure that it's a regular rhythm. So you want to make sure that it's something that you are going to bed at the right time and waking up at the same time. Good studies have shown us that it's much more about that regularity of going to sleep and waking up than it is total time. Now, look, if you're like, yeah, I go to sleep at midnight and I wake up at 5 a.m. and I'm doing that every night. Both of these are additive, but you would still have a problem if you're only sleeping 5 hours. So still, we've got to do some things to improve sleep. Our immune health is not going to be there. After that, it's exercise for sure. If you look at it, you're going to say we need to make sure that we have good exercise, and we are moving our body, because there's so much that relies on that. Whether that be, hormone balance, functional health, any of those things. We need to make sure that we are improving the function of our body, and exercise is a big part of that. So I would make sure that we're exercising, regular exercise. I don't care what it is. There are some studies that show that high intensity exercise boosts our immune system stronger than low load exercise or zone 2 exercise. But that's getting into the weeds if you're already exercising. So that would be the second one. The next one would be nutrition. Make sure that You are eating good, mostly clean, unprocessed foods. One of the biggest hits on our immune system is like us taking in lots of processed foods, and making and adding in these inflammatory molecules. So that could be us eating, highly processed sugars, any of that stuff. Packaged foods are going to tax your immune system because it's taking in all of these unprocessed or unnatural things that your immune system has to kind of at least go check out. And then deficiencies. I find a lot of people, when we start testing them for like their vitamin, mineral, micronutrients, they're low in vitamin D, or they're low in vitamin B, and we could be guessing on all that, but let's just get those levels up into optimal ranges, and the immune system is going to be in a much better place. It's going to be much healthier. So for the next couple weeks, if you're working on improving your immune system, I would try and sleep at least 7+ hours a night. I really want to say 8 to you, like get 8 hours of sleep, and that will really move the needle. I would start doing some strength training at least 3 days a week, and start and walk every day. Every day, take a walk in the morning, take a walk in the evening, and then 3 days a week, start strength training. When you're eating, eat protein and some version of vegetables at every meal. And then if you can, get a micronutrient test done and see where you're at in your vitamins, minerals, all of the micronutrients that contribute to immune health, can be really, really helpful to get those things in balance. So hopefully that helps. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions on any of that stuff. So keep on rolling. Lauren says, I saw research around creatine and brain health. Who should take it and how much? Yeah, there's been a lot further research on creatine and brain function, which I do think is a good thing. It's nice to see that some of that is making its way into the world. And so when we look at creatine, it's kind of past the, it used to be the gym bros thing, and then now it's really making its way into this should be on anyone who's dealing with aging or anyone who's dealing with energy issues. So basically, creatine helps to replenish cellular energy, ATP, and it does this everywhere, but it does it a lot in your brain. Your brain has a lot of energy requirements for its size. And so there was a study in 24 that was a meta-analysis that looked at a bunch of brain functions and creatine, and what they found is it helped improve brain function, cognition, and what they call executive function. And that was really, really helpful to know that. But then there was another study done on women specifically that was to mitigate sleep loss. And I think I talked about this on here one time, where for sleep loss, they gave people, I think, 20 grams, and it mitigated almost all of the issues of sleep loss, which is really, really cool. And so if I have a night where I don't sleep real well, I double my dose of creatine. With that, it's such an accessible and cheaper supplement that I think anyone who's aging, if you're over 50, we should start taking creatine. If we don't eat meat, if you don't eat a lot of meat, you should definitely take creatine. If you're a very heavy meat eater, you might be getting enough creatine just through your diet. But if you don't eat a ton of meat, then you want creatine. We need to make sure we're getting it. If you're strength training, you should do it. And then if you're in periods of very, very high cognitive demand, brain, you're going through a time where you're doing lots of really intricate like brain work, I think that's a very good time for us to look at it. So hopefully that helps and makes a little bit of sense. But I would take about 5 grams a day of creatine monohydrate, and I recommend that for just about everyone. It's cheap, it's easy, so that's my answer. If you're reading this or you're listening to this and you want a healthier brain and you want a healthier body, creatine's not a bad one to work in there. So. How was my trip? Hey, thanks, Michael. The trip was great. So we were in Croatia recently, and we found that what we were just talking about, we walked everywhere. We ate lots of like fresh fish with great olive oil and felt really good. I was telling many patients this week, like, it was such a good view of what that healthy environment is in terms of like having access to good fresh foods. You walk a lot of places, moving around a lot. It was just a really good trip. And then spending time with family and talking to some very wise family members and having some philosophical dinners is always a really fun thing. So it was fantastic. And I'm not going to mention Croatia is terrible. Y'all don't go there. It's all touristy and the sites are horrible. No, I'm just kidding. It's amazing, but it is starting to get more touristy, and tourists are starting to go because it's an awesome place. It's a beautiful country and beautiful people. So, yep, I love it. I highly recommend it to be on your list. So, yep, great trip, great place. Let's see. All right. Jennifer asks, do we have any tips for healing tinnitus? Well, tinnitus is probably one of those that if you get into like the medical community, they're not going to like the word heal very well. Healing is like whenever you look at some of the studies on healing diabetes, they are like, oh, okay, you have gone into a state where you no longer show symptoms of diabetes. So anyway, when we're treating tinnitus, there's a couple places that it can come from. I'll first point you to the Pain and Performance podcast and look up tinnitus. We have a full episode that goes through like a regenerative therapy protocol for tinnitus. But we always want to know, is this a signal thing or is this damage? Like, is this an inflammatory problem that's causing that, or do we have actual nerve damage in there? Because those two, the treatment's very similar, but the time frame can be quite different. And so when we're working on that, we want to treat the structures around the ear. We want to treat the nerve from the ear, the nerve going to the ear rather. And we want to make sure that the body has everything it needs to do to heal it. So typically, what we look at is, can we physically treat the joints in the neck, the joints around the ear and the jaw? And these are like physical treatments. I would just get a really good practitioner. Medical needling can get to a lot of these structures, so you're going to need somebody who does some version of needling. To address the chemical healing response, we often use NAD, which has shown really good improvements in just like nerve function. But with a lot of our tinnitus cases, it is one of the things that helps those nerves start producing energy better so they can repair. NAD, along with a compound called PEA that reduces inflammation, and then the peptide BPC 157. Those three stacked together do a really good job of giving the body some repair tools for the nerve in there. And then there are times where, on top of the treatment to the jaw, the nerves, the neck, and the compounding, that we need to laser into the nerve spaces around the ear. And that's something that we do with a high intensity laser. It's probably not something that you would do with like a home device or anything like that. But whenever we have tinnitus that's coming from an inflammatory response, that works really quickly. I've seen some patients who, in a matter of weeks, get rid of tinnitus when it's nerve damage. So I had damage to my ear from growing up shooting guns without ear protection. Don't do that, folks. And so it took me probably like a year of kind of weaving in and out of treatment to completely get rid of my tinnitus. But it did go away completely. And then, as I would do, I went and shot a pistol and didn't have good ear protection and came back. And so then I had to repeat that. Again, don't do that. But it is, I have treated it again and it's been gone. And now I've got really good ear protection that anytime I'm doing anything loud, whether that's riding a tractor or shooting guns, I'm using ear protection. So I would also look at that as you're treating this. Get some ear protection, and if you're going to be mowing the grass or anything like that, protect your ears, people, because tinnitus treatment is a challenging thing. So hope that helps. Daniel asks, what tests would you recommend when it comes to looking at your overall health? Yeah, I mean, this is one of those that it's probably starting to get a little bit cumbersome, right? Like, you know, you have these home blood testing kits, like Inside Tracker, Function Health, which I do like all of those. I think they give you like a quick test that you can do to find out how your body is functioning from the inside out, and doing that. So I do recommend those. I would start with like a good blood test that tells us your micronutrient balance, and if possible, your like cardiometabolic markers. Typically, those home units will test all of those things. The second thing I want to know is body composition, not just like your body weight, but what is your body fat percentage, what is your muscle mass, and where is it distributed in your body. That's quite helpful for us. We usually want to know a VO2 max answer. Where are you at least a really good idea of, and that gives us a great idea of the capacity of your cardiovascular system. I also want a strength and a movement score. I want to know your balance. And then I'd love to know like inflammation and cell health. I think if we hit those 5 areas, we have a great idea of how well you're functioning. And we also have a really good idea of what you need to do to improve it. So if you look at some of that, it's like, you know, if I've got, you know, really poor vitamin D levels, but everything else is doing well, I can still have a pretty poor immune system. It goes back to the question earlier, right? So I need to fix that. If I've got decent mobility, decent strength, my VO2 max is in the gutter. It's terrible. I have very poor cardiovascular health. That's the biggest marker we have for longevity. So I need to elevate that number as high as I can get it. So it's like I might need to actually change my training around that. So looking at it throughout this, through these different stages, gives you a really good idea of where to focus your attention to really get healthier and move the needle. So hopefully that makes some sense. And then you can get, I think the deeper question, that's probably a longer response, is what do you do with that information? How do you take that and put it into solutions? But we'll save that for a later date. Hey, Katie, if you wake up stiff and achy, is that just a part of getting older? I hate, that is not against you, but I hate the response of like, well, it's just getting older. I don't believe that that is a real response to things. Things accumulate with age, but I think the age itself does not bring like achiness or stiffness. We used to say like you don't get old then stiff, you get stiff then you get old. So you know, we want to look at this in a couple of different ways. Like, is it that you wake up and you're just like kind of a little tight, and once you get loosened up, you feel a little bit better? Then it might be like, all right, well, I just need to get blood flowing in the morning, and I need to start kind of, you know, exercising in a blood flow capacity a few times throughout the day. So that could be a very easy thing of like, I need to wake up, I'm going to walk and I'm going to stretch every day to get the stiffness out and start loosening things up. Whenever you kind of are getting symptoms from it, from the stiffness, then we also want to look at like the physical and chemical parts of that. So I do want to know, do we have inflammation in the body? Do we have inflammation in the area? That's going to create that stiffness that you're getting. I also want to know, you know, are you having any, you know, biological issues going on in there? Do we need to check the joints or the muscles? And I would also like to know, like, what is your electrolyte balance throughout the night? There's patches you can wear to check and see how much you're like sweating off what types of things. So we need to know if are you low in magnesium or potassium or sodium? And that's creating an imbalance across the muscle that's causing some stiffness. So it's not just a sign of aging. And I wouldn't just say, yeah, it's normal. I would lean in to try and find why I feel stiff and start to correct it, because it can get away from us. It can get slippery where you are a few years later and you're like, my neck used to be just stiff and now I don't have good mobility, I'm having pain. And when we start looking at it, it was like there was inflammation in there and now it's like arthritic. So don't ignore it. Start trying to correct it and keep going, keep doing it. Keep doing the stretches, the mobility, getting blood flow, and you'll get to a point where you're like, I wake up, I feel pretty good. It should be something you can get ahead of. Let's see. Chris asks, what's one thing, always the one thing, in people in their 30s or 40s should start doing now if they want to stay healthy and active as they age? My real answer would be to build capacity before you need it. Build strength now while you can, before you need it in your 70s, 80s, 90s, 100s. Get strong now while you can. Build cardiovascular endurance while you can, before you need it. It's almost like some of this stuff is going to regress. It kind of has to, unless stuff changes over the next 50 years and we completely figure out how to stop the aging process, which I really don't see that happening. But so we probably will be able to slow it down, but we need to still be like starting up high so that I can kind of coast down. And then at 90, I still have a good engine. I still have good capacity, strength wise, mobility wise, VO2, cardiovascular wise. So that would be my answer, because that goes into a lot of different areas. But build capacity to do the things you want to do before you need it, and set up your training program around that, set up your health program around that, set up your eating program around that. What do I want to be able to do and live like later in life, and how do I build that capacity now? Good question. I like that one. And let's see, Amanda, how do you know when pain is something you can work through versus a sign you should stop exercising? There's good studies on this, actually. Mild discomfort actually seems to help people kind of go further. They heal better and they actually get healthier in like the recovery process if they handle mild discomfort. So that would be like less than a 3 out of 10. And if it's less than 3 out of 10, that's kind of what we want to shoot for. As long as it's not elevating with your training. If you're like, I feel it, but it's like a 3 out of 10, you're good. Keep doing it, keep exercising, push through. The studies say you're going to get stronger, you're going to build more muscle. And at the end of it, you're going to have healed the same as someone who avoided any discomfort, but you're going to be stronger and healthier for it. If you start to compensate with pain and you're moving differently and you can't stop doing that, then that's when I would probably consider a different move for that particular thing, for that exercise. So that's, I'm trying to do a shoulder press and I'm like shifting around to do it. If you can't lighten the weight and modify that to do that without compensation, stop. We ought to be able to do these things without compensation. You might need to modify weight, range of motion. Like you might need to shorten your range of motion and just do smaller reps. When I was rehabbing my shoulder, I had to get to a point where my shoulder pain would like increase right around that 90 degrees. I see this a lot with shoulder people. And so I would do shoulder scaption training, like flexion training. And I would get to that point and I would skip the painful range, which was only like 5 inches. And then I could finish and feel fine. And for like 2 months, I had to just modify that move to get through that range without pain or without significant pain. And then it got to the point where I could just do the whole thing because I kept building that capacity up. I kept building that strength and resilience up. If it's sharp pain, if it's really significant, like it's over like a 5 out of 10, just shut it down. It needs to be checked out. If you're getting like numbness or like nerve symptoms, shut it down. You don't want to keep pressing into that because whether it's pinching or swelling that's causing that stuff, we don't want those things. So that's kind of the guide is like use the traffic light analogy, right? If it's like, less than a 3 out of 10, it's green, you're good, especially if it's stable. If it's starting to climb or you're compensating, that's yellow, modify it, change it a little bit. If it's sharp, if it's sudden, if it's numbness, if it's tingling, if it's over a 5 out of 10, that's a red light, stop it, shut it down. I need to write that down. I've not thought of that as the traffic light analogy. But I tend to tell people to try to keep moving. Movement and exercise is so healthy for your immune system, for blood flow, for your hormones, for your brain, that even if it's like I have an injured shoulder, there's so much else I can exercise. I can work on balance. I can do leg work. I can do core work. Try to keep your routine going and keep the momentum going, even if you're not exercising the injured body part. So hopefully that helps. All right, Matt. There's so many supplements out there. What are a few that you think actually make sense? That's a good question. Supplements should always be like a supplement to your health. They should improve stuff that's hard for you to do with just a healthy lifestyle. So there's a few that fit that for me. Glutathione is a big one. It helps with oxidative stress and like clearing out oxidative stress. And we create oxidative stress just breathing oxygen. And so that's a hard thing for your healthy lifestyle to keep you ahead of. So I would try to take stuff like that. Glutathione would be high on the list. That makes sense for most people. Oxidative stress leads to lots of issues, inflammation, damage, accelerated aging. If we can keep that out, we want to keep that out. So glutathione would be high on the list. I would say micronutrients that you've tested make a lot of sense. So do a micronutrient test. I would say chances are we're going to see vitamin D on that. And I have yet to find people who like taking a low dose vitamin D. It's very, very rare that you're one of the like one in, you know, hundreds of millions who are high in vitamin D. But I would still say test it because we need to know how much. But whatever you're low in from a micronutrient standpoint, vitamin and mineral standpoint, that makes a lot of sense. That's a very great way, and you will feel a difference with those things. Where if you're just kind of taking a supplement to just take it, you may not feel the difference with that. Creatine, as we talked about earlier, would be high on my list. I think for many people, low-hanging fruit makes a lot of sense, helps with brain, muscle, tissue health. That would be up there. And then probably omega-3s. I think an omega-3, unless you eat a lot of fish, would be a really great thing. Take a couple grams a day. There's been good studies on that for mental health, emotional health, inflammation. That would probably be my short list, would be take glutathione. Make sure you're correcting any deficiencies or imbalances based on your blood test. Probably add in some creatine and an omega-3 would be a great place to start. So good stuff. All right, my friends. August has come and gone. We've got some really exciting things coming up here at the office. Stay tuned. We're going to show y'all a bunch of fun things that are coming out. Let's see. Let's give them the date of our next one. So because there's a bunch of extra Tuesdays in September, our Tuesdays and Wednesdays, our next tea will be Wednesday, September 23rd. Tea with Dr. D, Wednesday, September 23rd. Get your questions in, and we'll see y'all then. Have a great night, everybody.